I got rear-ended. And the traffic cop who showed up to handle the accident was the same man I had just officially married last week. He took one look at the high heels on my feet, and his voice was completely flat, devoid of any recognition or warmth. "Driving in shoes that interfere with the safe operation of a vehicle," he recited, his tone all business. "That's 2 points off your license and a fine." I was speechless. Later that night, I was sprawled bonelessly across the pillows on our bed. "Officer," I murmured, my voice a low purr. "You were definitely speeding just now. I'm going to have to ask you to pay the fine." He didn't say a word. It all started during the morning rush hour. The traffic was a nightmare, and my car was suddenly jolted forward. I'd been rear-ended. I slipped on my shoes, a high heel on my left foot, a flat on my right, and hobbled out of the car to assess the situation. I checked the back of my car. The damage wasn't too serious. I was just about to tell the other driver to forget about it, that no compensation was necessary, when he launched into a tirade. "Hey, lady, are you serious?" he yelled, his face turning red. "This is a congested road during peak rush hour, and you're a novice with a student driver sticker, cruising around in a Porsche Panamera. Do you think that's appropriate?" He jabbed a finger at the bright yellow sticker on my rear bumper, his eyes rolling so far back in his head I thought they might get stuck. My own temper flared. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to give him a piece of my mind. Just then, a traffic cop arrived, pulling up on his sleek police motorcycle. He parked it, removed his helmet, and revealed a face that was, to put it mildly, devastatingly handsome. I took a closer look and my jaw nearly hit the pavement. Of course. It was the man I'd just married last week. Ethan's gaze swept over me, professionally detached. "Are you injured?" he asked. I just shook my head, still a little stunned. His eyes then dropped to my mismatched footwear, and a deep frown creased his brow. The temperature seemed to drop a few degrees. "Driving in high heels is a violation," he said, his voice laced with ice. "It impairs your ability to drive safely. 2 points and a fine." I was so indignant I could barely speak. I pointed a shaky finger at my right foot. "But I was driving with the foot that's wearing a flat." "That is still considered an act that impairs safe driving," he stated, his face an unreadable mask. He lifted his radio to his mouth. "Miller, get over here." A younger officer came jogging over. He had a round, cheerful face that was instantly likable. "What is it, Captain?" Ethan gestured vaguely at the scene. "Rear-end collision." "You handle it." Miller's face was a picture of confusion. Ethan sighed, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. "She's my wife," he said, his voice low. "I need to recuse myself to avoid a conflict of interest." Miller's whole body jolted as if he'd been hit by a taser. He stared at me with a look of pure, unadulterated awe. "So, it's you." I managed a weak, awkward smile, trying to discreetly hide my high-heeled foot behind my other leg. Ethan saw the little movement, and his lips pressed together into a firm, tight line. I could tell he was fighting with every fiber of his being to keep from laughing. My dashcam records a full panoramic view with no blind spots, and the footage was crystal clear. It showed the other driver looking down at his phone right before he slammed into me. With that evidence, determining fault was a simple matter. After the accident was processed, Ethan told me to pull my car over to the side of the road. I stood by the door, my head bowed, as I braced myself for the lecture I knew was coming. "Laura, you're really something else," he began, his voice dangerously low. "I haven't seen you in a few days, and in that time, your nerve has apparently grown to an incredible size." He gestured toward my feet. "On the one hand, you're wearing high heels to drive, which shows a shocking lack of safety awareness. On the other hand, you knew enough to swap out the shoe on your accelerator foot for a flat. So which is it? Are you safety conscious or not?" He leaned in a little closer. "Director Laura, are you really so busy that you can't spare 30 seconds to change both of your shoes?" "Hmm?" He straightened up, crossing his arms. Don't think for a second that I won't go home and throw out every single pair of high heels you own." With that, he wrote out a ticket and slapped it firmly into my hand. Miller, who had been standing by, couldn't watch anymore. "Captain, come on, I think she knows she was wrong. Maybe this one time you could." "If I don't ticket her this time, she'll do it again," Ethan cut him off, his face hard. His voice was a low, gravelly rumble, edged with a genuine anger that sent a shiver down my spine. "How many traffic accidents are caused by women driving in high heels every single year? Do you know those statistics, Miller? How many people are seriously injured, how many are killed? How many families are torn apart because of a stupid, preventable mistake? She might not know those numbers, but you do, don't you?" Miller looked down at his shoes, thoroughly chastened. Fine. So, he was using this as a teaching moment for his subordinate. I knew I had to switch tactics. I immediately softened my posture, looking up at him through my eyelashes. "Honey," I said, my voice sweet and contrite. "I know I was wrong. Please don't be angry." That single word, honey, seemed to do the trick. The hard lines of his face relaxed ever so slightly. Just then, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw it was my assistant, Tomas. "Director Laura, everyone's here. The meeting is waiting on you. When do you think you'll get here?" His voice was so loud that my ear was ringing before I even had the phone pressed against it. I clenched my jaw and unleashed a torrent of fury into the receiver. "Hurry? What do you mean, hurry? Are you rushing me? My car just got hit. Do I absolutely have to be at your stupid meeting? Why does every tiny little thing have to come to me for a decision? Do I pay you people just to sit around and eat? Hold the meeting yourselves. Just send me the minutes when you're done." I stabbed the end call button and then turned to Ethan, my face a perfect mask of sweet supplication. "Honey," I cooed, "I have a bit of an emergency to deal with. Can I go now?" A complex series of emotions flickered across his face before he finally, slowly, nodded. Permission granted. I immediately turned and dove into my car. Just as the door was closing, I thought I heard Ethan ask Miller, his voice low and bewildered, was she just taking a shot at me?" Ethan and I met through our parents. His father is a retired Army colonel, and mine is a retired senior executive from a large corporation. A mutual friend, an Uncle Bob type, introduced them to each other. One sunny afternoon, the three old friends were out fishing together. Ethan's father mentioned he had a bachelor son, 33 years old. He'd been injured a couple of years back and had transferred from the homicide division to the traffic division. He said his son was a bit rigid, a little too serious, but his best assets were a handsome face and a solid set of 8-pack abs. My father, in turn, mentioned that he had a single daughter, 28 this year. He bragged that her face and figure were both top-notch, though she had a bit of a short temper. She was a sales director at a private company and had been so focused on her career that she'd never even been in a serious relationship. And just like that, it was a match. They decided to set us up. Ethan and I had our first date in a park. It was a day in June that had started out bright and sunny, but by noon, a light rain had begun to fall. I hadn't brought an umbrella, so I took shelter in the nearest pavilion. I was watching the flowers sway in the rain, lost in thought, when my phone rang. "Hello? Hi, is this Laura?" "This is Ethan." His voice was a deep, magnetic rumble that, against the soft patter of the rain, felt almost unreal. I instinctively turned my head, and my eyes met those of a man standing at the other end of the pavilion. He was even more handsome in person than he was in the photos. He had neatly trimmed short hair and a sharp, chiseled jawline. His almond-shaped eyes, high-bridged nose, and thin lips gave him a cool, slightly aloof appearance. He was wearing a simple black t-shirt, but on him, it somehow radiated an incredible sexiness. The moment I saw him, I knew I had absolutely come to the right place. "Is the work at the traffic division busy?" I asked. "It's all right. The hours are pretty regular. What about you?" "Sales. Overtime is pretty much unavoidable. Oh, by the way, I can't cook. I can, he said without hesitation. What do you like to eat? I'm not a picky eater. I'll eat whatever you make. Do you live alone? Yeah, I have a 3-bedroom apartment in the West End. We can live there after we get married. I love dogs, I said, testing the waters. I'd like to get one after we're married. How about you? I like them too, he replied with a small smile. We can get one together. And that was it. One thing led to another, and we quickly made our relationship official. After dating for 2 months, our parents met, and shortly after that, we went to register our marriage. The day we got our marriage license, I was so excited that I immediately moved all my luggage into Ethan's apartment. But I had barely had a chance to get settled before I got a call from work. I had to go to Chicago for an urgent business trip. It was a 5-day trip. We were newlyweds, and we were already getting a taste of what it felt like to be apart. When I finally got home that night, the entire apartment was filled with the delicious aroma of home-cooked food. Ethan hadn't been lying when he said he could cook. In fact, his skills were incredible. On the table were roasted asparagus, garlic butter shrimp, barbecue ribs, and a side of sautéed garlic spinach. Everything looked and smelled amazing, and even the pasta was cooked to a perfect al dente. My mouth was so full of delicious food that I had completely forgotten about the traffic ticket he'd given me. He watched me eat, his chin propped on one hand, a faint smile playing on his lips. I couldn't quite tell what he was thinking. As night fell, a light rain began to fall again. A cool evening breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh grass. I was just on the verge of drifting off to sleep when a warm, solid chest pressed against my back and a strong arm wrapped around my waist. The clean, minty scent of his body wash instantly jolted my senses awake. I snuggled back against him. Ethan, I whispered, did you miss me at all these past few days? He murmured a soft and pressed a gentle kiss to my earlobe. The touch was warm and ticklish, and it sent a pleasant shiver through me that was impossible to resist. You missed me, I teased, but you still gave me a ticket? I don't see how those two things are mutually exclusive, he replied, his voice a low rumble against my back. You're impossible, I grumbled. I pretended to be angry, but he just chuckled and rolled me onto my back, pinning me beneath him. Our bodies fit together perfectly, and the heat between us began to build. His lips brushed against my ear. Laura, what did you call me this morning? I played dumb. Officer Kane? His hands tightened on my waist as his mouth descended on mine. He kissed me deeply, nibbling and sucking at my lips until the citrus mint flavor of his toothpaste filled my senses and stole my breath away. He kissed me until my head was spinning and I had to beg for mercy. Honey, okay, you win. He let out a low, triumphant laugh. No, that's not good enough. Much later that night, I was lying exhausted on my stomach, and I gave him a light kick with my foot. Officer, I said, my voice husky with sleep, you were going way too fast back there. I'm going to have to ask you to pay the fine. Oh, he murmured, his voice laced with amusement. And what speed would be considered not too fast? That's not the kind of fast I was talking about. The next afternoon, a client was breathing down my neck for a proposal, so I sent Ethan a quick text. Working late tonight. Won't be home for dinner. K, he replied. It might be really late, so don't wait up for me. K. I rolled my eyes and tossed my phone aside. That infuriating man. He saved all his sweet talk for the bedroom. In day-to-day life, he was as stoic as a statue. At 9 o'clock that night, my assistant, Tomas, approached my desk. Director Laura, we can handle the rest of this. You should go home and get some rest, he said kindly. Don't let that cold get any worse. I mumbled a tired and picked up my car keys. I had a headache and felt feverish. It was obvious I had heat stroke. I'd had a cold drink in the afternoon, but I wasn't sure if I was in any condition to drive now. After a moment of hesitation, I put the car keys back down on my desk. As I walked out of the office building, a flashy pink sports car screeched to a halt in front of me. My college roommate and best friend, Emily, leaned out of the window. "Laura. I heard you were sick but still burning the midnight oil. I came especially to pick you up. Aren't I the best? Wow, you got here so fast. Were you already nearby?" "Yeah, at a bar on the next street over." My eyes widened. "You've been drinking?" "Relax," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "I didn't have a single drop." I got into the passenger seat, and as I turned to put my bag in the back, I froze. The back seat was crammed with 4 handsome young men. Just from looking at their faces, I could tell they were young, probably not even 20 yet. 3 of them were wearing tight t-shirts that perfectly outlined their muscular physiques. The 4th wasn't wearing a shirt at all, and his 8-pack abs glistened under the streetlights. "Emily," I stammered, "did you just kidnap a bunch of male models from a bar?" "I saw what I liked, so I brought them with me," she said with a shrug. "I can set them up at my family's club. Isn't that better than them wasting away in some dive bar?" She started humming a cheerful tune. "So? Not bad, right?" I quickly turned back around, not daring to look at them for another second. Then a thought struck me. "Wait a minute," I said. "Isn't this car overloaded?" A burst of laughter erupted from the back seat. "You're so cute. You should come hang out with us later." My face flushed a deep red. I waved my hands frantically. "No, no, thank you, I'm married." Emily sighed dramatically. "Laura, your husband is way too strict. We're all adults. What's the big deal with going out and having a little fun once in a while?" I was silent for a moment. "Maybe I should just get out here," I said nervously. "We could get a ticket for having too many people in the car. It's true what they say, speak of the devil." As if on cue, I saw the flashing lights of a police checkpoint just ahead. My stomach dropped. Emily, however, was completely unfazed. "It's probably just a DUI checkpoint. We'll blow into the breathalyzer, and we'll be on our way. It's dark out. Who's going to be able to see who's in the back seat?" She pulled the car to a stop and rolled down the window, eagerly leaning out. "Officer, let me blow for you." The traffic cop glanced into the car, and his gaze suddenly sharpened, his eyes becoming as keen and piercing as a hawk's. "The car is overloaded," he said, his voice firm and unwavering. "Everyone, out of the vehicle." Emily and I stood on the sidewalk as the 4 young men climbed out of the car one by one. When the shirtless one emerged, the atmosphere suddenly became thick with a strange tension. "Captain," the first officer said into his radio, "something doesn't seem right about this situation. Check their IDs. Make sure all these boys are of legal age. Question them. If there's anything suspicious, hand them over to the appropriate department for processing." I pressed my fingers to my forehead, wishing the ground would open up and swallow me whole. Emily, bless her heart, was completely oblivious. She was still trying to explain the situation. "No, officers, you don't understand. These are my new employees. They're all adults. This is a purely professional relationship." A professional relationship. I couldn't even look. It was just too embarrassing. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the air from up ahead. "What's going on here?" That deep, magnetic voice was like a clap of thunder in my soul. "Captain Ethan, it's them," one of the officers reported. "We need to investigate this thoroughly." A tremor went through my entire body. I stared at the ground, my head bowed in shame. I heard footsteps approaching, and a pair of standard-issue police leather shoes came into my line of sight. The air was suddenly filled with the scent of cedarwood, the cologne I had secretly spritzed on him that morning. "Look at me." I couldn't. I was too mortified. He reached out and gently took my chin in his hand, forcing me to meet his gaze. Under the dim, yellow glow of the streetlight, his dark eyes were impossibly deep, a swirling vortex of shadow and icy water. The other officers were staring, their mouths agape. "Captain," one of them stammered, this isn't really appropriate, is it?" Ethan's eyes narrowed, and he asked me in a low, dangerous voice, "Laura, weren't you supposed to be working late? How did you end up in a car full of male models?" I managed a weak, sheepish smile. "Honey, I can explain." The air went completely still. A second later, a chorus of whispers erupted. Is that the captain's wife?" They checked everything that needed to be checked and asked everything that needed to be asked. When the truth finally came out, the only ticket issued was for the overloaded vehicle. "Laura, I'm gonna take off now, okay?" Emily, completely oblivious to my impending doom, waved cheerfully and drove off with her group of young men. I was left standing there, picking at my cuticles, so awkward I didn't know where to look. Ethan finished debriefing his team and walked over to me. He pressed the back of his hand to my forehead, and his handsome eyebrows knitted together in a worried frown. "You're not feeling well. Why didn't you tell me? I could have picked you up from your office." "I sent you a message," I mumbled, "but you just replied with K. I thought you were busy, so I didn't want to bother you." I wasn't really angry, I just wanted to tease him a little. But because I was sick, my voice came out with an unintentional note of grievance and petulance. Ethan's expression softened immediately. He put his arm around my waist. "So, this is my fault?" I shook my head quickly. No, I wouldn't dare. I'm afraid Officer Kane will write me another ticket." A few of the other cops were shamelessly staring at us from a distance, their ears practically twitching. Wow, so Captain Ethan has a gentle side after all. This is a rare sight. I've never seen it before. Have you guys? Nope. But then again, we're not gorgeous supermodels. Ethan ignored them completely, scooping me up into his arms and placing me gently in his car. When we got home, I was so dizzy that I just collapsed onto the sofa. Ethan knelt beside me. "Have you eaten dinner?" I nodded, my hand finding his and gripping it tightly. "Honey," I whispered, "I want chicken noodle soup." He murmured a soft "I'll go make it for you right now." By the time I finished my shower, a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup was waiting for me on the table. The broth was a rich golden color, and it looked absolutely delicious. I slurped the noodles in small, happy mouthfuls, my eyes curving into crescent moons. "Honey, I'm so happy right now." "You're happy just because of a bowl of soup?" Ethan chuckled, a look of fond exasperation on his face. "You're really easy to please." I shook my head and leaned against him. "I'm happy because I found a wonderful husband." He looked down at me, and a wave of deep emotion washed over his features, his eyes shimmering like a gentle, starry river. The mood was so perfect that my mind couldn't help but wander to certain, intimate scenarios. I rubbed my freshly showered, still warm foot against his thigh. "Honey," I purred, "should we go to bed?" He flicked me on the forehead. "You're sick. What are you thinking about?" I pouted and let out a little whimper. He pulled a pack of cold medicine from a drawer, popped a few pills into my mouth, and said in a soft voice, "Take your medicine and get some sleep. If you're not better tomorrow, I'm taking you to the hospital." "But I have a client meeting tomorrow." "I'll do whatever you say," I conceded immediately. The next morning, I stretched and walked out of the bedroom. On the dining table, there were fried eggs and sausages, along with a pot of steaming hot vegetable congee. Ethan took off his apron and sat down, looking up at me. "You still look pale. Take the day off." "I'll stay home with you today." My eyes lit up, and I happily pulled out my phone to email my boss and request a sick day. While we were eating, Ethan's phone rang. He seemed to not want me to hear the conversation, so he took the call out on the balcony. The balcony door was quite soundproof, so I couldn't make out what they were saying. I could only see that Ethan was frowning, his expression dark, and he seemed to be arguing with the person on the other end of the line. When he came back inside, I couldn't help but ask, "Honey, who made you so angry?" "It's nothing," he said dismissively. "Who was that on the phone?" Someone related to an old case. Was it a woman? He paused for a fraction of a second. Yes. A chill went through me. I bit down on my fork and said nothing. He smiled and gently tweaked my nose. It's just work stuff. It's not what you think. Not what I think. Then why did he have to take the call in private? I was annoyed, but I didn't press the issue. I just said oh and stuffed a piece of fried egg into my mouth. He could clearly see right through me. He squeezed my hand gently. What will it take for you to not be angry? I pretended to think about it for a moment. Spend the entire day cuddling with me, and I'll forgive you. A smile touched the corners of his mouth, and his cool eyes warmed with affection. Deal. Every September, my company holds a huge annual gala. This year was no exception. When Ethan got home from work, he found me in front of a full-length mirror, twirling around in a champagne-colored slip dress, my eyes adorned with the trendiest cat-eye makeup. He stopped in his tracks when he saw me, momentarily speechless. I walked over to him, my hands clasped behind my back, and leaned in playfully. Honey, do I look good? His eyes darkened, and his hands suddenly shot out to wrap around my waist. A fierce emotion swirled in the depths of his dark eyes, as if he was struggling to control an impulse to devour me whole. I blinked and stood on my tiptoes, wrapping my arms around his neck. Am I breathtakingly beautiful? He nodded without a moment's hesitation. Yes. Breathtakingly beautiful. Then I guess I'll be slaying the competition again tonight. Ethan raised an eyebrow, and his grip on my waist tightened. And how exactly do you plan on slaying the competition? Well, in previous years, there were always a lot of guys who tried to hit on me. This year, I guess. Laura, he warned, his deep, magnetic voice laced with a hint of danger, think very carefully before you answer. I could see that my little scheme was working perfectly, and a wave of satisfaction washed over me. I giggled. This year, I can proudly tell everyone that I have a super handsome husband. Let's see who dares to call me a spinster now. He seemed very pleased with that answer. A smile spread across his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. Honey, the gala starts at 7. Will you drive me there? Of course. He pulled the car up to the entrance of the banquet hall. I saw a few of my colleagues arriving, so I quickly pulled Ethan out of the car with me. Director Laura, you're usually the last one to arrive. What's with being so early this year? Oh, and yes, this is my husband. We just got married last month. Director Laura, that dress is gorgeous. And your shoes are the perfect match. My husband is super handsome, isn't he? He's 6'3" and has 8-pack abs. Director Laura, congratulations on your department exceeding its sales targets again this year. We're having the wedding ceremony next year. You all have to come. After I'd made the rounds, I gave Ethan a quick kiss on the cheek. Honey, I purred, will you come pick me up later? Ethan's lips were pressed into a thin line, as if he were suppressing some strong emotion. He just gave a slight nod. As I watched him drive away, I walked into the banquet hall with a self-satisfied smile, asking everyone I met, did you see my husband just now? Isn't he ridiculously handsome? This year, my boss had hired a renowned British chef for the gala. After being spoiled by Ethan's home cooking, I found the exquisitely plated but bland dishes to be a real disappointment. So, about halfway through the evening, I excused myself to my supervisor and left early. Ethan arrived quickly to pick me up, and we drove to a nearby barbecue joint. He rested his arm on the open car window. I'm having a late dinner with a few of my colleagues in there, he said nonchalantly. Do you want to come in and meet them? He quickly added, but if you're too tired, that's fine. I'll just tell them I'm leaving and take you home. I tilted my head and leaned in, staring into his eyes. He instinctively looked away, and a suspicious shade of red appeared on his earlobes. I burst out laughing and took his hand. Of course I want to go. We've been married for a while now, and I haven't properly met any of your colleagues. It's about time I got to know them. He smiled without a word and led me inside. At a large table by the window sat 4 men. Other than Miller, they were all new faces to me. Miller was the first to greet me, and the others quickly followed suit. "Laura, you look absolutely stunning tonight." "Like a movie star," Miller said with a wide grin, pouring me a glass of soda water. "See? This is why we always say our Captain Ethan is the luckiest guy in the world. He got to marry a woman as young, beautiful, and successful as you. Miller, you really know how to talk. Your words are as sweet as honey." "Hey, he's just telling the truth," another one chimed in, and they all laughed. I could feel my cheeks burning. I pushed the soda water toward Ethan and poured myself a glass of beer instead. "Ethan's driving tonight, so I'll have a few drinks with you guys." Ethan glanced at me. "You didn't drink enough at the gala?" I gave a sheepish smile. "Well, those fancy dishes don't exactly pair well with alcohol." Miller glanced at Ethan's expression. Seeing that he wasn't objecting, he took the lead and raised his glass to me. After a few rounds, the atmosphere loosened up, and we all started to get to know each other. Just as we were all laughing and joking, a sharp female voice cut through the air from behind me. "Ethan." I turned to see a young woman approaching our table. She froze when she saw me, and the smile on her face slowly vanished. "Ethan, who is she?" "Wow." The sheer acidity in her tone could curdle milk. I had a pretty good idea of what was going on. I looped my arm through Ethan's and leaned against him affectionately. "Honey," I asked in a sweet voice, "who is this?" Ethan didn't even spare the girl a glance. "Rachel," he said flatly. "A client from an old case." "Oh," I said, tilting my head and giving her a bright smile. "Hello, client." Behind me, I heard Miller let out a snort of laughter. Rachel's eyes welled up with tears. She gritted her teeth. "And who are you?" "I just called him honey," I said, looking at her as if she were a particularly slow child. "Who do you think I am? Do you need me to show you our marriage certificate?" Rachel was stunned. "What? That's impossible. When did this happen? Why didn't I know?" Ethan's posture stiffened, and his brows furrowed in annoyance. "Why would we need to let you know? Are we close?" That simple question was all it took to completely shatter Rachel's composure. "Ethan, I know I was wrong. It's been 2 years, and I've regretted it every single day. Why won't you forgive me? Even if you're trying to avoid me, you didn't have to just marry some random woman. Look at her. She's obviously a seductress, a vixen. You're such a righteous and upstanding man. Being with a woman like her is completely beneath you." Ethan slammed his hand on the table and shot to his feet, his face so dark it looked like a storm cloud was about to burst. "She is my wife," he snarled. "Show some respect." Rachel was so frightened by his anger that she flinched. I quickly stood up and put a calming hand on his arm. "Ethan, don't waste your anger on someone like this." Rachel glared at me. "What do you mean, someone like this? You don't know?" I raised an eyebrow and looked her up and down. "Let me help you figure it out." I looked theatrically at the ceiling, then took her hand in mine. "Let's see," I said with a seductive smile. "Judging from the lines on your palm, your fate is sorely lacking in virtue and severely afflicted with desperation. How's that for an accurate reading?" Miller and the others burst out laughing. Rachel's eyes were red with fury. She pointed a trembling finger at me and demanded of Ethan, "What do you even like about her? What does she have that I don't?" Ethan's eyes darkened, and he enunciated each word with chilling precision. "You don't measure up to her in any way." Rachel was completely devastated. "What did you say?" "Her family background is excellent, her personality is wonderful, she's smart, gentle, and understanding. She's young, beautiful, and successful in her career. She excels in every possible way. The fact that we are together is a credit to me, not the other way around. Who are you, a complete outsider who knows nothing about us, to stand here and judge her? To pass judgment on our relationship?" What gives you the right? Ethan's face was cold, and his words were like daggers. Rachel's hand fell to her side, her face as white as a sheet. I found out later that 2 years ago, when Ethan was still in the homicide division, he had solved a kidnapping case. The victim was Rachel. She fell for him instantly, claiming that she had to repay his life-saving grace by marrying him. From then on, she followed him around like a persistent shadow. One time, Ethan was on an undercover assignment when Rachel spotted him and yelled out, "Officer Kane," immediately blowing his cover. The suspect he was tailing flipped the table and opened fire, killing 2 innocent bystanders. Ethan was shot in the shoulder and abdomen while protecting Rachel, and he almost didn't make it. Because of that incident, Ethan's mother developed mild depression and refused to let him go back to the homicide division. Left with no other choice, Ethan had to request a transfer. After hearing the whole story, I was silent for a long time. My nose tingled, and a strange, aching sensation spread through my chest. I bowed my head as tears began to stream down my face. So that's where Ethan's scars had come from. He had almost died. Ethan sighed and wrapped his arms around my shoulders, gently wiping away my tears. "Laura, don't be sad. I'm fine now, aren't I?" I buried my face in his chest and sobbed. "I'm so angry. I was way too easy on her. If I ever see her again, I'll curse her out so badly her own mother won't recognize her." Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "It's okay. It's all in the past." "It's not in the past. I'll never forgive her for this." Okay, he soothed. "You can curse her out all you want. Can I hit her?" "No." By the time we got home that night, it was already past midnight. I had had a lot to drink. My face was flushed and hot, and my mouth was dry. Ethan carried me into the bedroom and made me a glass of honey water. I chugged it down and then immediately started unbuttoning his shirt. "Laura, I haven't showered yet," Ethan said, a note of weary amusement in his voice as he gently tried to stop my hands. I ignored him, pulling his shirt off and tossing it aside. I traced the scars on his shoulder and abdomen, and my nose began to tingle again. "Honey, promise me you'll never get hurt again." He smiled faintly. "Okay. I promise." I nodded, then sat up on the bed and pointed at him. "Kneel." He froze. "What did you say?" "On one knee." "Oh." Seeing that I was drunk, he didn't get angry. He actually knelt down on one knee in front of me. I squinted at him, and on a sudden whim, I lifted my leg and rested it on his shoulder. My champagne-colored high heel sparkled in the dim light. Ethan's gaze darkened. "Honey, you're drunk." "It's okay. Tomorrow's the weekend," I said with a sly smile. "We don't have to sleep tonight." With that, I gently pressed the heel of my shoe against his shoulder. His chest muscles were incredibly firm, I could feel their hardness even through the sole of my shoe. Ethan stared at me, and a thick, syrupy desire spread through his eyes, rolling over me in waves, threatening to pull me under. "Honey, this dress was a little expensive, but it's not like I'm ever going to wear it again, so." He grabbed my ankle, pulled me forward, and leaned over me, his voice husky. "So what?" His warm breath on my face made me blush. I feigned innocence and fluttered my eyelashes. "So, it's okay if you ruin it." A wicked grin spread across his face. "Good," he growled. At 3 a.m, I was sitting on the edge of the bed in a silk robe, picking up a piece of torn fabric from the floor. When Ethan came out of the shower, he found me staring at the scrap of champagne-colored silk in my hand. "Don't tell me you regret it," he said, drying his wet hair with a towel, a playful smile on his face. "Because I definitely can't sew it back together." I looked up at him, my eyes shining with excitement. "Honey, I think I've just unlocked a new kink." One morning in early December, a light snow began to fall. It was also Ethan's birthday. I had taken the day off from work and spent the morning meticulously cleaning the apartment. Around noon, Miller and a few other colleagues showed up with gifts, also passing along birthday wishes from the officers who were on duty. During the meal, Miller led a toast. "Captain," he said with a grin, "after today, you'll be 34. Isn't it about time you started thinking about having a kid?" The other colleagues chimed in. "Yeah, with you two's good looks, you should have at least a few." My face grew hot, and I looked down, taking a sip of my beer. Ethan said coolly, "My parents aren't even rushing me, but you guys are. Just eat. Can't all this delicious food shut you up?" Just after our guests had left in the afternoon, I received a message from Emily. "Laura, I heard it's your husband's birthday today. I got you a huge gift." I scratched my head in confusion. It was Ethan's birthday, so why was she sending a gift to me? The gift arrived shortly after, in a very large cardboard box. The delivery guy had a strange look in his eyes when he handed it to me. I didn't open it right away. While Ethan was in the kitchen doing the dishes, I snuck into the bedroom with the box. I closed the door, opened the box, and my eyes went wide. Inside was a black leather whip, a pair of pink plastic handcuffs, white fishnet stockings, bunny ears, cat ears, bear ears, and a big, fluffy tail. The box was filled to the brim with similar items. That Emily. She wasn't sending me a gift, she was trying to get me to wrap myself up as a gift for Ethan. Just then, the door behind me opened, and a dark shadow fell over me. I gasped and quickly tried to close the box, but it was too late. Ethan raised an eyebrow and leaned against the wardrobe, his arms crossed, a teasing smile on his face. "Honey, is this the birthday present you got for me?" I gave a weak laugh. "This is from Emily." "It's my birthday, but she sent you a gift?" Ethan stroked his chin thoughtfully. "I think I'm starting to understand." "Understand what?" There was nothing to understand. I wanted to cry. He pushed me aside, opened the box, and pulled out the small pink handcuffs. He twirled them around his finger for a moment and then chuckled. "Nice gift. Thank her for me." "Huh?" Before I could react, I heard a soft click. I looked down to see that my left wrist was now locked in one of the handcuffs. He threw me over his shoulder, tossed me onto the bed, and locked the other end of the handcuffs to the headboard. "Laura Kane, you're under arrest," he said, his eyes half closed as he stared down at me, his expression dark and unreadable. My breathing quickened, and my whole body felt hot. "Ethan, I had no idea you were such a pervert. You and Emily are two peas in a pod." He laughed and leaned over me, pressing his body against mine. His lips brushed against my ear, and his voice was a seductive whisper. "Laura, do you admit your mistake?" My eyes widened. What mistake did I make? "You stole my heart." Where did he even learn these cheesy pickup lines? I was so embarrassed I couldn't even look at him. He nibbled on my lip, his warm breath fanning across my skin, sending delicious shivers through me. Every breath he took seemed to pluck at my heartstrings. "Do you confess now?" Yes, I confess to everything," I said, my face flushed and my throat dry. "So, Officer Kane, how are you going to punish me?" He glanced at the box on the floor and a slow, wicked smile spread across his face. "Your punishment is to try out every single one of these with me." Outside, the world was a blanket of white. Snowflakes like goose feathers drifted down, covering everything in a cool, pristine layer. But inside, the air was scorching hot, a tangible heat that filled every corner of the room. Late that night, when Ethan carried me out of the bathroom, my legs were still weak and shaky. I fumbled for my phone under the pillow and sent a message to Emily. "The toys are great. Send me the link. I need to order more." "That whole box isn't enough for you too?" "Not even close." On Thanksgiving Day, I was up early, getting dressed and putting on my makeup. It was my first time celebrating a holiday with Ethan's parents, and I wanted to make a good impression. Ethan's parents lived in a community for retired military officers. His father had a high rank, so they lived in a detached house with a small yard in front. The flowers and plants in the yard were all flattened by the recent snow. When we arrived, Ethan's father greeted us at the door with a warm smile, taking the gifts from my hands and insisting that we shouldn't have brought so much. Ethan's mother, however, was sitting in the living room, talking to a square-faced middle-aged man. She seemed a bit distant, which was very different from the warm, enthusiastic person I remembered. But as soon as she saw me, her face broke into a brilliant smile, and she pulled me over for an introduction. "This is my daughter-in-law, Laura. Isn't she just beautiful? She's as good-natured as she is gorgeous, and so successful at such a young age. You really can't find a single flaw in her." After singing my praises, she finally introduced the guest. "Laura, this is the head of the homicide division, Ethan's former superior. You can just call him Mr. Scott." I quickly greeted him. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Scott." He responded just as warmly. "I've heard so much about Ethan's wonderful wife, and today I finally get to meet you. The wedding must be soon, right? Don't forget to invite me." "Of course. Captain Scott, long time no see." Ethan walked over, and the two men shared a warm embrace. They seemed more like old friends than a superior and his former subordinate. "Has the division been busy lately?" "Ah, same as always. It's almost noon. Why don't you stay for lunch?" Mr. Scott shot a subtle glance at Ethan's mother and tactfully declined. No, my wife is waiting for me at home. You all should enjoy your family reunion. I won't impose." With that, he said his goodbyes. Ethan walked him to the door. I had been observing their interactions, and as soon as Mr. Scott was gone, I leaned in and whispered to Ethan's mother, "Was Mr. Scott trying to get Ethan to go back to homicide?" Margaret's eyes lit up. "See? This is why everyone says you're so smart." My heart sank. "Mom, what does Ethan think about it?" "It doesn't matter what he thinks. I won't let him go back," Margaret said firmly. "He's my only son. He's already had one foot in the grave. I won't allow it to happen a second time. People can call me selfish, they can say I'm only thinking of myself. I don't care." She sighed and took my hand. "Laura, if he's considering it, please help me talk him out of it. You two are newly married. This is the perfect time to start trying for a baby." I nodded thoughtfully. After lunch, Ethan took me for a walk around the neighborhood. The cold wind whipped around us, chilling my nose and cheeks. I was bundled up so tightly that only my eyes and the red tip of my nose were visible. Ethan tucked my hand into the pocket of his down jacket and asked nonchalantly, "I saw Mom talking to you for a while. What did you two talk about?" "Oh, nothing much. Just asking when we're going to have kids." I winked at him. "So, honey, what are your thoughts on that?" Ethan chuckled. "Ready to be a mom already?" The question made me blush. I ducked my head, wishing I could disappear into my scarf. He squeezed my hand. "We just got married. We haven't had enough time for just the two of us yet. There's no rush to have kids. Let's wait a couple of years." "Oh, I thought you'd want to have them sooner," I teased. "After all, you are 5 years older than me." "What, are you doubting my physical fitness?" He raised an eyebrow and laughed. "Don't worry. Even 10 years from now, I'll still be able to make you a mom." My face was bright red. I really should have known better than to say that. After the new year, work piled up like an avalanche. On a rare weekend when I didn't have to work overtime, I slept in until past 4 in the afternoon. I stumbled out of the bedroom, yawning, and saw that the door to the study was closed. I could hear voices from inside. "Captain Scott, I have no intention of going back." It was Ethan's voice. "It's not just that my mother disapproves. There are other reasons. You probably don't know this, but my wife's job is very demanding. Sometimes she can't even rest properly on her days off. Right now, I have enough time to take care of her, to manage everything at home. But if I go back to my old job, we'd barely see each other once a month. I don't want that." His tone was sincere. He added, "I'm sorry to have disappointed you." I froze, my breathing slowing to a crawl. An empty, aching feeling opened up in my chest and spread through my entire body. "Laura, what do you want for dinner?" Ethan asked as he walked into the bedroom. I was leaning against the headboard, hugging a pillow, with a file in my hand. He seemed to notice something was off and sat down beside me. "Why do you have the bank statements out?" I put the pillow down and spread the documents out for him to see. I managed all our finances, and he never asked about them. When he saw the numbers on the page, his eyes widened in surprise. I smiled. "Honey, my annual salary is about $500,000. I also get bonuses for big projects and a year-end dividend. Other than buying the car, which was an impulse purchase, I don't really have any major expenses. So, I've saved up quite a bit over the years." He looked at me, a flicker of concern in his eyes. "Why are you suddenly telling me all this? Did something happen?" I suppressed the lump in my throat and tried to sound cheerful. "Honey, we have a lot of savings. We don't have to be afraid of any difficulties in the future. We could afford to raise a whole soccer team of kids. If you want to go back to the homicide division, I'll apply for a transfer to a less demanding department at my company. I won't make as much money, but I'll have enough time to take care of our home. When you're out on assignments, I'll be here waiting for you. We won't have to be apart." My throat felt tight, and my voice was strained. Ethan understood immediately. "You heard everything?" I nodded, my head bowed. "Honey, the truth is, I don't want you to go back either. I'm scared you'll get hurt. I'm scared that one day I'll get a call from one of your colleagues telling me you're in a hospital, fighting for your life. But I'm even more scared that you'll have regrets. I'm scared that I'll be the one holding you back. I know I promised your mom I would talk you out of it, but I want to respect your decision." As I spoke, tears started to stream down my face. Ethan let out a heavy sigh and pulled me into his arms. "You silly girl. Don't think like that. You are not holding me back. I made this decision because I want to maintain the life we have now. I want to be someone you can rely on, the pillar of this family. This is what I truly want. But you love being a homicide detective. I know you do. And you? Do you love your current job?" Ethan gently cupped my face, his gaze calm and steady, a rare warmth softening his cool features. "Laura, be honest. Do you love it?" I deflated. "Yes. Even though I'm always running around like crazy, it's very fulfilling. And I can make a lot of money, buy lots of things I like. Then if you love it, you should keep doing it. Don't transfer just for me," he said with a soft smile. "I don't want you to give up a job you love just to accommodate me. Who says that only men can choose their careers while women have to make sacrifices? That's an old way of thinking. It's not fair. But, are you really okay with it?" I looked at him, my eyes pleading. "I heard from Miller that you were a decorated officer, that you had a brilliant future ahead of you." He leaned in and gave me a soft kiss on the lips. "Don't try to persuade me. I'm not going back. Right now, I just want you to support me. Are you willing to do that?" My nose tingled, and I threw my arms around him, sobbing. "Honey, from now on, I'll support you." In the cool, early spring of March, I met Emily for lunch at a cherry blossom-themed restaurant. Before I left, Ethan repeatedly asked me if there would be any other men at the gathering. In his mind, Emily was synonymous with male model wrangler, and a date with her was like walking into a lion's den. I had to reassure him multiple times before he finally let me go. "Laura, your husband's misunderstanding of me is just too deep. At this rate, is he even going to let me be your maid of honor?" Emily fumed, aggressively cutting her steak. "I don't care. Even if he says no, I'm still going to be your maid of honor. I've already looked at several dresses." I laughed. "Don't worry. You're the only one I want as my maid of honor." "That's more like it," Emily huffed. "By the way, have you picked out a wedding dress yet? The wedding is in October. Isn't it a bit early to choose one now? What about the wedding photos? When are you taking those? Probably in May. The weather will be nice then, and I want to do an outdoor shoot. And the honeymoon? We haven't decided on that yet. There are too many places I want to go. As we were chatting, a man at the next table kept looking over at us. He even had the waiter send over 2 cocktails. Emily rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck and had the waiter send the drinks back. When we left the restaurant, the man still hadn't given up. He actually followed us out and asked for both of our phone numbers. Ladies, I have a friend at the Nightfall Club. How about I treat you to a drink? Fed up with his persistence, Emily simply pressed the key fob for her car. A short distance away, her flashy pink Maserati lit up. She gave him a cold smile. I own 3 clubs and 5 hotel chains. Get lost, you idiot. The man's face instantly changed color. I quickly grabbed Emily and pushed her toward her car. That guy smells like alcohol. If you provoke him, there's no telling what he might do. Don't stoop to his level. Just go. Emily fastened her seatbelt. Okay, I'm leaving. You be careful on your way home. As soon as she drove off, I hurried to my own car. But just as I pulled out, a BMW started tailgating me. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that the driver was the same man who had been harassing us. Unbelievable. He was drunk driving. I had to report him. I memorized his license plate number and was about to pull over to call the police when the BMW suddenly swerved from the left and slammed into the side of my car. The impact was so hard my breath caught in my throat. I watched in horror as the man got out of his car, his face contorted in a mask of rage. My first instinct was to lock the doors. Sure enough, he yanked on the handle and, finding it locked, began pounding on the window. I had never been in a situation like this before. My hands were shaking as I tried to call Ethan, but the line was busy. In a panic, I called Miller. Laura, what's wrong? I quickly explained what had happened and gave him my location. He sounded extremely worried and told me not to get out of the car under any circumstances, that he was on his way. But just as I hung up, the man smashed my window with a heavy object. Get out here. You think you're so great because you have money? You think you can humiliate me? You shameless bitch. He was clearly drunk. His face was flushed, and his eyes were bloodshot. Before I could move, he reached through the shattered window and dragged me out of the car. The broken glass sliced a long gash in my arm. I struggled free and scrambled around the car to put some distance between us, screaming at the top of my lungs, "Help! He's trying to kill me." A few cars pulled over, and several kind passers-by helped me restrain the man. In less than 10 minutes, a police car arrived, and Miller and another officer got out. Laura, you're hurt. Miller's face was filled with a righteous fury, his eyes turning red with anger. I grabbed his arm. You're a police officer. You can't be impulsive right now. Follow the procedure. Don't give anyone a reason to complain. Miller took a deep breath and pulled out a breathalyzer. The man refused to take the test and even tried to run away. So now he was facing charges for drunk driving, assault, and fleeing the scene. Miller immediately subdued him, handcuffed him, and handed him over to his colleague. Miller took me to the hospital. The cut wasn't deep, and the doctor treated it quickly, assuring me that it wouldn't leave a scar. I had just breathed a sigh of relief when I heard Miller's urgent voice from outside the examination room. Captain, Laura's fine. It's just a minor injury. Jing is handling the case. Don't do anything rash. Don't come over here. I'm afraid you'll lose control. My heart clenched. I rushed out and snatched the phone from Miller's hand. Ethan, what are you doing? There was silence on the other end of the line, only the sound of his ragged breathing. I gripped the phone tightly. Ethan, I'm fine. Don't be angry. I had someone pull the footage from your dash cam, he said, his voice a low growl. That bastard is a dead man. A chill ran down my spine. He was absolutely furious. If he went to the station now, he would beat that man to a pulp. I took a deep breath and made my voice as stern as I could. Ethan, you are to come to the hospital right now. If I don't see you in 10 minutes, then from now on, we're sleeping in separate rooms. I hung up before he could reply. Miller looked at me, a doubtful expression on his face. Is that going to work? I let out a long breath. Don't worry. It's extremely effective. Less than 15 minutes later, Ethan arrived, his face a thunderous mask. When he saw the bandage on my arm, the anger in his eyes was replaced by a wave of pain and concern. Does it still hurt? He asked, his voice hoarse. I shook my head and forced a smile. The doctor said it's just a superficial wound. It'll heal in a week. I just have to avoid greasy, salty, and dark-colored foods for a while, and you won't even be able to tell it was there. He gave a curt nod. Good. He put his arm around me and started to lead me out. Miller followed us. Don't worry, Captain. That idiot is facing multiple charges. He'll be locked up for a few years. Ethan's expression was still grim. He's still drunk and causing trouble. Once he sobers up, he'll probably try to settle. We're not accepting any settlement. Everything will be handled according to procedure. He must be severely punished. Miller puffed out his chest. You can count on us. At Ethan's insistence, I took 3 days off from work. When my boss heard I'd been injured, he had a mountain of gifts and nutritional supplements sent to my home. Eat. When you finish this, I'll buy you more. My precious employee, you have to get well soon. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I turned to Ethan. Honey, do you know how to cook this? Ethan took out his phone and searched for a recipe. It looks pretty complicated. I rubbed my hands together eagerly. So, can you make it? He gave a slight smile. My wife wants to eat it, so I have to learn. Just wait. And that day, I got to eat it. I finished the entire large bowl. Even though it was a bit bland, my heart was filled with sweetness. I didn't just laze around during my 3 days off. I found a great wedding photography studio, and after listening to the sales pitch, I paid the deposit right away. 3 outfits, 3 different looks, a combination of indoor and outdoor scenes, and a wide variety of themes to choose from. When Ethan got home that evening, I excitedly told him the news. When he heard that the shoot could take up to 12 hours, a subtle change came over his expression. I asked cautiously, Honey, do you think it's too long? He smiled faintly and stroked my head. I'm just worried you'll get tired. You complain after walking just a few blocks. Are you sure you can handle a full day of changing in and out of outfits and posing for photos, both indoors and outdoors? I put my hands on my hips and huffed. Of course I can. This is a happy kind of tired. I can totally handle it. He smirked. You said it. Don't you dare ask me to carry you then. I won't. Whoever chickens out is a little puppy. Okay, little puppy. It was a sunny day in May, perfect for a wedding photo shoot. After the first set of photos, I felt like a queen. After the second set, I was still holding on. After the third set, I was a little puppy. As the sun began to set, the distant mountains were silhouetted against the dusky sky. The afterglow of the sunset painted the shimmering surface of the lake, making it look like a river of shattered stars. On the grassy bank of the lake, a man in a tailored suit stood tall and straight. His features were deep and steady, and he exuded an air of cool elegance. Across from him, a woman in a mermaid-style wedding gown, her face glowing like a peach blossom, smiled radiantly. She swayed her slender hips and held her arms out to him, asking for a hug. The man's smile was gentle and doting. He turned his back to her and crouched down. The woman joyfully leaped onto his back, wrapping her arms around his neck. Honey, what did you say to me last time? Do we really have to do this? Are you going back on your word? Woof, woof. A month later, I picked up our wedding photos from the studio. There were 2 huge albums, 3 small photo frames, and a 40-inch framed portrait. I hung the largest one in the most prominent spot in the living room and admired it for a long time. I took a picture of it, intending to send it to Ethan, when my phone rang. It was Miller. "Laura, I have to tell you something. Please don't panic." I froze, and a chill spread from the soles of my feet to my heart. My voice trembled as I asked, "What is it?" Half an hour later, I arrived at the hospital address Miller had given me. He and a few other colleagues were standing together, their uniforms spattered with blood. My heart leaped into my throat. I grabbed Miller's arm. "How is Ethan?" Miller swallowed hard, his eyes red. "He was stabbed in the chest. The wound is deep, right near his heart. The doctor said he went into shock from blood loss. He's in surgery right now." The world tilted on its axis. My legs gave out, and I almost collapsed. Miller quickly helped me into a nearby chair. I couldn't breathe. My hands and feet went numb, and the words were stuck in my throat. I couldn't say a single thing. After a few moments, a gut-wrenching sob tore through me. Miller and the others gathered around, trying clumsily to comfort me. "What happened? How could this happen?" I cried, tears streaming down my face. "Wasn't Ethan on duty? Why was he stabbed?" Miller let out a heavy sigh and told me what had happened. It turned out that Rachel had never gotten over Ethan. She had even developed a mild form of bipolar disorder. Her parents had contacted Ethan several times, hoping he would spend time with her and help her recover, but Ethan had refused every time. He told them that he was a married man and didn't want to be involved with any other woman. She needed a doctor, not him. A short while ago, Rachel had had another episode, alternating between cutting her wrists and taking sleeping pills. That morning, she had climbed onto a rooftop and threatened to jump, demanding that Ethan come to see her. She even live-streamed it, telling the world my name and where I worked, calling me a homewrecker who had stolen her boyfriend, swearing she would haunt me even after she was dead. The police contacted Ethan, hoping he could help de-escalate the situation and talk her down. As a former homicide detective, Ethan was professionally trained to handle these kinds of situations. After some negotiation, he managed to calm Rachel down. But just as he reached out to pull her to safety, she pulled a dagger from her coat and plunged it into his chest. Ethan reacted quickly, cuffing her to a pipe. He didn't pull the dagger out, and he managed to stay conscious until the ambulance arrived. Rachel. It was her again. It was always her. I gritted my teeth, my chest heaving with a volcanic rage that spread through every inch of my body, searing me with its heat. I finally understood. The person related to an old case who had been calling Ethan was Rachel's parents. Ethan hadn't let me listen to their calls because he didn't want me to get angry, and he didn't want me to feel burdened by Rachel's illness. "Laura, Rachel has bipolar disorder, so this case might get complicated," Miller said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "But don't worry, I've already contacted a friend at the DA's office. We'll do everything we can to make sure she's convicted." I closed my eyes and let out a long, slow breath. If Ethan comes out of this okay, I might be willing to play her games in court. But if something happens to him, I will never, ever forgive her. I waited. And waited. The sunlight outside the window slowly faded. As dusk fell, the light above the operating room door finally went out. My heart leaped into my throat. The doors opened, and a doctor walked out. "Who is the patient's family?" My legs were weak, but I pushed myself up, leaning against the wall for support. I said, my voice hoarse. "I'm his wife." The doctor removed his mask. "We've stopped the bleeding. His vital signs are stable for now. We can move him to a regular room. You'll need to go handle the paperwork." The crushing weight on my chest finally lifted. I covered my mouth with my hand and sobbed with relief. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much." I got him a private room with an extra bed for me. Ethan was still unconscious, his eyes closed, his face pale. I sat by his bed, pressing his hand to my cheek as tears rolled silently down my face. By the next morning, Ethan still hadn't woken up. I hadn't slept a wink, and I couldn't eat a thing. I just sat there, my eyes swollen from crying, staring at the man in the bed. Suddenly, his fingers twitched, and his thick eyelashes fluttered. My energy surged back in an instant. "Ethan, are you awake?" He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze unfocused. "Laura," his voice was so hoarse it was barely a whisper. My heart ached. "It's me, Laura," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm here. I've been here the whole time." He saw my swollen eyes, and a frown creased his brow. "I'm sorry, Laura. I scared you." "No, I wasn't scared," I said, shaking my head vigorously. "I knew you would wake up. You wouldn't leave me." Even as I said it, the tears started to flow again, unstoppable. Ethan let out a low sigh. "Laura, come here." I sniffled and leaned closer. "Kiss me," he whispered. A watery laugh escaped me. "Of all the things to think about right now." He squeezed my hand. "Just one kiss. Please?" His voice was soft, almost like he was pleading. He had never been like this before. It was as if getting stabbed had completely changed his personality. I couldn't resist his puppy dog eyes. I leaned down and gave him a gentle peck on the lips. A small smile touched his face. "Good girl. When I'm better, I'll make you your favorite barbecue ribs." My heart swelled with a mixture of love and pain, and I kissed him again, this time more deeply. Just then, we heard a commotion outside the door, and it swung open. "Laura, is the captain?" Miller's voice trailed off as he and the others took in the scene. They beat a hasty retreat, and in a matter of seconds, they were gone. I covered my face with my hands, mortified. "This is all your fault." Ethan's eyes twinkled. "How is this my fault? You're getting pretty good at blaming me for things." "It just is." All right. I can't move right now, so whatever you say, goes." Miller and the others hadn't gone far. They were hiding just outside the door. When I called them in, they entered, carrying bouquets of flowers. "The captain is really something else. He just woke up, and he's already all over Laura." Well, of course. Not everyone has his skills. The blush still hadn't faded from my cheeks as I held a straw to Ethan's lips so he could drink some water. After a few sips, his lips looked less pale, but his voice was still raspy. "All right, that's enough of that. My Laura is shy. If you really make her angry, I'll be the one who has to deal with it." Hee, got it. "What's the situation now?" Miller's expression turned serious. "Rachel's family hired a lawyer and posted her bail." Ethan didn't seem surprised. His face was unreadable. I, on the other hand, couldn't contain my fury. I angrily called my assistant, Tomas, and quickly explained the situation, telling him to find me the best lawyer in the industry. "Yes, I want Mr. Davis. As long as he can get her locked up, money is no object." I hung up and started gently wiping Ethan's face with a damp cloth. "She thinks she can get away with hurting my husband like this?" "I don't think so. That crazy woman. I'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars if I have to, just to make sure she goes to prison. And then I'll have her committed to a mental institution so she never gets out." Ethan's pale face flushed slightly under my care. He smiled and took my hand. "Okay, she's a dead woman. Now, can you please calm down and not be angry?" I huffed. "If you get better quickly and take me to buy a puppy, then I won't be angry." We were supposed to go get a puppy that weekend, but then this happened, and all my good mood had been replaced by a burning rage. Rachel was a menace. 2 weeks later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital. The doctor said he was recovering well, but he was forbidden from doing any strenuous activities for a while. To that end, I had bought a wheelchair. The look of utter rejection on Ethan's face was priceless. Miller and the others were trying so hard not to laugh that I thought they might actually burst. Come on, Captain, just sit in it. Yeah, it's a gesture of Laura's love. Look, you're making Laura upset. Just get in the chair. Ethan couldn't win against me. He finally sat down in the wheelchair, his face dark. As I pushed him out, Miller and the others were sneakily taking pictures and sending them to their group chat. Of course, the photos eventually made their way to a group chat that Ethan was also in. Ethan glanced at his phone, and his hand, which was resting on his knee, clenched so tightly that his veins popped out. He ground out through his teeth, "You guys are really pushing it." Miller and the others immediately wiped the smiles off their faces and stood there, as meek as rabbits. The moment we got home, Ethan couldn't stand it anymore. He stood up and took a few steps. I rushed over to support him. The doctor said no big movements. I'm just walking. Not more than 10 steps. I helped him to the sofa and said sternly, "The doctor said your wound was very deep, and the recovery period will be long. So, starting today, you are not to leave this wheelchair for 1 week. You are not to do any housework for 1 month. And you are not to do any strenuous exercise for 3 months. Understood?" Ethan was silent for a moment, a complicated look on his face. "So, does that count as strenuous exercise?" My ears burned, and I glared at him. "You're impossible. How can you be thinking about that at a time like this?" He held up his hands in surrender. I was wrong. Just then, the doorbell rang. I ran to open it. "Mrs. Kane? Your new dishwasher, dryer, water purifier, and robot vacuum have arrived. Please sign here." "Okay." After I signed, the delivery man brought everything inside. Ethan looked at the mountain of boxes, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Kane, I'm only temporarily unable to do housework. Did you really need to buy a whole new set of appliances?" I put my hands on my hips and huffed. "I've wanted to buy these for a long time, but you never let me. Now that we have everything, you can take it easy from now on." A month later, Mr. Davis called to tell me that Rachel's case had been decided on appeal. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, to be followed by mandatory commitment to a mental institution. I knew Mr. Davis was a master of his craft, and 3 years was likely the maximum sentence allowed by law. "Mr. Davis, thank you so much for all your hard work on this." "It was my pleasure. My firm has a long-standing relationship with your company. It was an honor to be of service to Director Laura. By the way, my wedding is in 2 months. I would be honored if you would attend." Director Laura and Officer Kane's wedding? I wouldn't miss it for the world. After hanging up, I let out a long sigh of relief. Ethan had come up behind me without my noticing. He wrapped his arms around my waist, his deep, magnetic voice a low rumble by my ear. "You're not satisfied, are you?" "Of course not." "Look what she did to you," I pouted, turning in his arms to hug him. "But what can I do? Mr. Davis is the best in his field. Anyone else probably couldn't have gotten such a long sentence." Ethan's arms tightened around my waist. "Are you very familiar with Mr. Davis?" "We're acquainted." "How acquainted is acquainted?" I burst out laughing and looked up at him. "You're not jealous, are you?" His gaze was dark and unreadable, but his tone was definitely sour. I thought back on it. I had been in frequent contact with Mr. Davis lately, and I had often praised his professionalism, his handsome, intellectual looks, and how his chest muscles strained against his shirt. At the time, I hadn't thought anything of it, but now, it did seem a little inappropriate. I gave a sheepish smile and stood on my tiptoes, wrapping my arms around his neck. "Honey," I purred, "I'll never praise another man again. You're the most handsome, the best man in my heart. And your chest muscles are bigger than his." Before I could finish, he swept me up into his arms. I looked at him warily. "No, you can't. You still have 2 more months. To hell with 2 more months." October arrived, and with it, our wedding day. I stood behind Ethan, wearing a magnificent wedding gown and holding a bouquet of flowers. He was much taller than me, and his perfectly tailored suit made his shoulders look broad, his waist narrow, and his legs impossibly long. Just looking at his back made my heart flutter. The photographer gave the signal. I nervously licked my lips and gently poked Ethan in the back. "Honey, you can turn around now." Ethan's head moved, and then he slowly turned to face me. His gaze fell upon me, and his deep, dark eyes suddenly became incredibly bright. A torrent of emotions washed over his face, melting away his usual cool composure, leaving only a burning intensity. I felt a little shy under his intense gaze. "Honey, do I look amazing?" He suddenly stepped forward and pulled me into his arms, his fingers brushing against my white veil. "My Laura," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "is the most beautiful woman in the world." His warm breath on my ear made it burn. My heart pounded in my chest. "Honey, can I ask you for something?" "These sweet, wonderful things you're saying, can you say them to me every day?" Ethan looked down at me, and a slow smile spread across his face. "That depends on your performance. If you can make me happy, you can hear them as often as you like." What kind of a thing was that to say? This man, getting stabbed, had definitely changed him. The photographer captured our genuine, emotional moment and then began to pose us for more photos. The wedding dress was huge and heavy, and I was starting to feel the strain. Ethan patiently helped me adjust the train, his hands almost never leaving me. "Let's get a few kissing shots," the photographer called out, and the guests cheered. There were so many people watching that I felt a little shy. But Ethan, surprisingly, was not shy at all. For a man who usually seemed so serious and reserved, he had no problem kissing me in front of hundreds of people. From a soft, teasing peck to a deep, passionate kiss that made me forget where I was, he led me completely. "Laura, pay attention," Ethan's deep voice rumbled in my ear. His hand on my waist tightened, closing any remaining space between us. I pressed my hand against his chest, feeling his racing heartbeat and the heat radiating from his body. My own breathing grew ragged. "Honey," I whispered, it was love at first sight for me." The secret I had held on to for so long just tumbled out. I expected him to tease me, to say something like, "I knew it all along." But he didn't. Instead, he gently cupped my face, his eyes filled with a tenderness and devotion that took my breath away. "It was love at first sight for me too, Laura. The moment I saw you, I knew I wanted to marry you." I stared at him, my vision blurring with tears. So, from the very beginning, we had both felt the same way. It had always been both of us,